David Hedgewalker is one of the main protagonists in Call of Duty Ghost. He is a member of the Stalker Task Force, and he is the older brother of the playable character Logan Walker. Hesh appears to be a skilled soldier, a natural leader, and he often acts as a protector of Logan. And he also fights alongside Elias, who leads the Ghosts in their battle against the Federation, a powerful South American military alliance. Some of the personality and traits that define David Hedgewalker is his loyalty to his family and then his loyalty to the Ghost. He is a very loyal person. He is passionate, sometimes impulsive though, when it comes to protecting his team and his brother. And throughout the campaign, he kind of serves as a mentor, guiding Logan in combat and decision making. And now a lot of secondary protagonists or secondary characters in the history of Call of Duty have done this. We could think of Gideon, we can think of Salter, we can think of Hesh himself, we can think of Captain Price. Like throughout the history of Call of Duty, there's always been another character that you have alongside you that kind of helps you, mentors you, walks you through doing some of the things that you need to do. And Hesh in particularly did a great job during Call of Duty Ghosts, and I felt a connection to him, and he was extremely helpful. I think that Hesh, being the brother of Logan, played a big part in the character feeling so loving towards Logan. Towards us, if you want to say it that way. Now, if we look at the character itself, just Hesh, and what kind of maybe soldier he is, he has strong leadership skills, and we noticed that throughout the game as he started taking charge, as he got more responsibility, even after his father passed away. So there was a lot of potential in Hesh in just becoming that maybe next leader of the Ghost later on. But being the older brother of Logan, he would just kind of take a overprotective role maybe on Logan at times, and the way that he spoke to him and the way that he kind of wanted Logan to make certain decisions. He was decisive for the most part when it came to what was going on during battle. And obviously him becoming a member of the Ghost alongside his brother, he was highly trained in a lot of different military aspects like military tactics, stealth, survival, guerrilla warfare. He excelled in particularly in close quarter combat. And Hesh had a lot of determination. Hesh did not want to back down from a fight ever. And when he was faced with overwhelming odds, he wanted to continue to just push forward and continue to fight. His determination is extremely evident, especially after the death of his father, when he just pursued Rourke with a mean vengeance. And that vengeance was passed down to Logan, and it encouraged us to want to kill Rourke as well. And there's still so much more layers to Hesh that we couldn't even uncover because we only got one game with him. But we noticed that he was physically strong and he can endure a lot. And his emotional strength maybe wasn't the best. When we talk about that one in particular, we noticed that there were some weaknesses there. So if we talked a little bit about maybe some of the strength that he had, but if we look at some of the weaknesses that maybe Hesh had, was impulsiveness and emotional decision making. At times he did that. He would allow his emotions to dictate what was going on. When his father died, he did get very angry, and a lot of that hatred that he had for Rourke drove him to maybe act a little reckless at times, because he made his decisions, at least to us, it felt like he made his decisions based on vengeance rather than what was actually best at that moment. He also had a lack of experience compared to the other Ghosts. Even though he had been fighting for a really long time, he hadn't been fighting as long as Merrick, as long as Keegan, as long as Elias, as long as even Rourke. So there was a somewhat lack of experience. They still had a few years on Hesh, so he wasn't as seasoned as some of the other Ghosts. And I think that Rourke exploited that a lot when it came to Hesh because of that freaking psychological warfare that Rourke was extremely good at, that it even got others like Keegan riled up, others like Merrick riled up, like Elias. And so if Rourke can get to them, of course he can get to Hesh. And so he still needed to strengthen himself in that particular avenue of warfare, the psychological avenue. And so yes, Hesh was a strong leader, a great fighter, but sometimes that emotional decision-making, impulsiveness showed a lot during Call of Duty Ghosts. But now that we've looked at kind of who Hesh is and some of his skills, some of his weaknesses, some of his history, David Hedgewalker was played by Brandon Routh, the actor who is best known to me and maybe to some of you as playing Superman in Superman Returns. But Brandon Routh has a particular voice that's very calm even when he's angry, very calm even when he's yelling, and he can show a lot of raw emotion. And I really enjoyed that about Hesh. Hesh was a character filled with emotion, filled with raw anger, filled with like a lot of regret. He was hiding something inside of him that only came out sometimes. And I think that David Hedgewalker is one of my personal favorite characters in the entirety of Call of Duty, and I think he's one of those better characters in the history of Call of Duty. But nobody ever really talks about him. Nobody ever really remembers him. Nobody ever brings him up because of the failure of Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, just because a game failed doesn't mean that a game was bad. Maybe Call of Duty Ghosts was out at the wrong time. Maybe followed Black Ops 2, and people love Black Ops 2 so much that they didn't really care for Call of Duty Ghosts at all, and it just wasn't good enough in the campaign aspect, in the zombies aspect, which weren't zombies, they were cryptides, and in the multiplayer aspect, the fun factor was missing from Ghost. And so when you talk so much bad about Ghost, you forget some of the good that it had. There's so much good in the campaign, in my opinion. It's my favorite thing about Call of Duty Ghost. It's also one of my favorite campaigns. And so Hesh being a part of that was a big reason. I really liked the character. I really loved the relationship that he did have with his brother. He did care for him. He did want to help, you know? You could tell that he loved his family and he just wanted to keep everybody safe. And he took on that responsibility as the older brother. It was on him. And when things happened, it was on him. And I can relate to that because I'm the older brother of 3. And so I want to make sure that my siblings are taken care of. And if anything were to ever happen to my parents or anything like that, then I have to burden the responsibility, if you want to call it that, of making sure that my younger siblings are taken care of and they're good. And so Hesh felt a similar way, especially with his mom dying. You know, him growing up with his dad and his dad being gone a lot. And then him having to take care of Logan probably. And then when they get older, you know, his father getting murdered in front of them. And now Hesh has to take care of Logan, has to get revenge for his father, and has to keep the family that he has now safe. And that family is Logan, that family is the Ghost. So he took a lot of responsibility, and I really like that about the character. There were basically a lot of layers to David Hesh Walker, and we were just scratching the surface. We were just lifting that first layer to really get a good look at him. And I bet there would have been so much more to uncover, so much more to see, and the growth that David could have seen if the story of Call of Duty Ghosts continued in maybe another 1 or 2 games could have been awesome. Maybe he could have really gotten revenge at the end for his father, or maybe he would have tragically passed, or he would have become a big, cool, badass leader. You know what I'm saying? And so there was a lot of layers still to see from David, but I just really do think that he is one of those better characters in the series. And I enjoyed his character design. I enjoyed how he was. I enjoyed how close we were. I enjoyed so many aspects of Hesh. And so I know that I'm in the minority here, but when I think of great Call of Duty characters, David Hesh Walker is one of the guys that I think of. You know, and I think of him like I would any other character that you might think of, just because he was that good in that particular game. I think sometimes too, I've talked about having contained Call of Duty stories, where maybe you just tell a story and that's kind of that, and you don't really expand on it anymore. You kind of do it in one campaign. Obviously, Call of Duty Ghosts needed a second game, but sometimes only having one game for Call of Duty Ghosts makes it all that more memorable, because you know that that was a story told. And then your mind can wonder and think all these things of what could have happened next. When they lose that fight against Rourke, but they win that little battle against the Federation, they're very happy. Logan gets taken away, and Hesh is fucking broken and destroyed because he was hurt and he couldn't help his younger brother. He couldn't save his younger brother from the big bad Rourke. And you know, that had to fuel Hesh like you wouldn't believe. And I bet that if we would have played a second game, you probably would have been able to play as David Hesh Walker as you're looking to find Logan. And that would have been pretty fucking cool. But because there's only one game in Ghost, you can think of these things and like, what could have happened? This could have happened, or that could have happened. So it kind of lets you wonder, and there's always going to be a conversation around Call of Duty Ghost because we never really got a proper sequel to it. All in all, I just wanted to talk about David Hesh Walker today because he is definitely a forgotten Call of Duty character. And I put him in my list that I made about top 5 forgotten Call of Duty characters because he really truly is. Nobody ever talks about Hesh, and it just sucks because there's a great character there that could have rivaled any other character in Call of Duty that has been or played that role of mentor, and he could have just been so much bigger and so much better. And it just never ever happened with any of the Ghosts, and in particularly David Hesh Walker. We all have our favorite characters in Call of Duty and characters that we go to bat for. David Hesh Walker is one of those characters. Absolutely. At least for me.